A lot of people my age just don't want to work until the age of 65, 70 to enjoy retirement. I do the work that I want to do when I want to do it, and that was always my goal.
305 million plus impressions you've done for clients, hundreds of clients you've worked with.
I was posting online, and off the back of that, I got a DM from somebody who said, "You're great at creating content. Can you help me?" 2-3 years in, I was just not in love with my business anymore. I felt like shackled to the thing that I'd created. I didn't have time freedom. I didn't have location freedom. Yes, I was building financial freedom, but there was costs to that. And like my health was quite a big cost as well. And I realized when you hit a milestone in business, you just create a bigger milestone and you just like start climbing this ladder that never really ends. It was our biggest revenue month as a company when I decided to burn it all down.
You do have to make an investment in your own time to create content, but the payback is potentially huge, isn't it?
Yes. My initial belief that you can build a one-person business and live a successful lifestyle.
Shoaib, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, great. And you came up from the north today, down to Houston, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. It's nice. It's nice to come back to London after being away, because I was here for a year when I was younger doing an internship. But yeah, been back. I like to visit it and then leave.
And I'll try briefly, but I'll let you sort of summarize what you do and who you are. But LinkedIn is some incredible statistics I was reading about earlier, about 300 million plus, I think 305 today. Million plus impressions you've done for clients, hundreds of clients you've worked with. Do you want to give a sort of pithy summary as to what you do?
Yeah, of course. So I run a LinkedIn first personal branding company, and I essentially help business owners, C-suite execs, leaders, creators, coaches, anyone who wants to build presence online. I help them do that on LinkedIn through coaching, strategy, and then content creation, with the intention of growing their business, but first using their own personal brand rather than the company brand to generate influence, amplify their visibility, get eyeballs on their profile, website, offers. And through that, you create essentially a sales funnel that starts with the individual and filters all the way down to direct retainer clients, digital product sales, selling out events, launching cohorts, etc. So I work across different industries because the core principles of personal branding on LinkedIn are universal. Yeah. And then it's just a case of tweaking and adapting the strategy based on target audience, market, industry, goal, etc.
Amazing. And I want to dive into so many different things, but just going back to the beginning, one of the things we try and look at on the podcast is to understand people's journey and when they made that shift from being an employee to being an entrepreneur or being self-sufficient in terms of your own salary. So how did you start? What did you study at university? That was sooner for you than it was for me. So what did you study and what jobs did you get into first?
Yeah, so I studied geography at uni, so social political geography. So it's everything to do with immigration law, geopolitics in the Middle East, colonialism, loads of different things. And I chose that degree because I just genuinely loved it. I did consider doing a marketing degree, but I thought marketing is a career that you don't necessarily need a degree for. And I think especially now, degrees in many industries, especially in business, are almost like a tick box next to your name, but you don't necessarily need one to be successful. So I studied geography, and then I did a marketing internship whilst at uni with a small agency that specialised in helping grads get jobs, which was interesting because I was actually their target audience, but I was also marketing their grad roles to other students like me. Did that, absolutely loved it. And then I finished uni, graduated, and got an offer with...
Was it Durham, isn't it?
Yeah, Durham University. I got an offer with Johnson & Johnson, the pharmaceutical firm, and the civil service as well. One was a marketing grad scheme and one was in the Department of Defence and Security. So two, again, very different job offers. But what happened at the time is it was COVID. I was on LinkedIn posting content to try to land opportunities.
So COVID was your last year at uni? Or?
Yeah. So it was quite intense because there was no kind of guarantee and the job market was quite volatile. I was posting online, and off the back of that, I got a DM from somebody who said, you're great at creating content. Can you help me create content for my clients? So he ran a personal branding agency, although at that time it wasn't called personal branding. Now I feel like it's become well known in the mainstream.
Yes.
It was more just copywriting. I essentially rejected both grad schemes and took this job with this person that I'd never met, a salary that was like 6-7k less than the grad scheme, and thought, if there's any time to take a risk, it's right now when I don't have dependents, I'm living at home. And so, yeah, I did that. I worked as a copywriter for this guy for 6 months. And then after that,
It's all online.
All online, yeah. I met him once, actually, in person. All online from my bedroom in the spare room in my parents' house. And 6 months in, my brand was building on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because I was still posting every day, even as an employee. That was really important to me, to continue to build my brand, to create opportunities in the future. And yeah, I then one day left that job and set up as a freelancer. And it was January the 1st, 2022, where I posted a video on LinkedIn saying, I'm now freelancing and I don't know what's going to happen now, but I'm going to share a post every single day sharing the journey. And then that business still exists today, and it's grown quite a lot.
And so just to get an idea of scale, where I guess your LinkedIn followers went from basically zero around the time of graduation to
just around 62,000, I think, at the moment.
Wow.
So yeah, it grew quite quick over the 4 years, but because I was literally living online, I was like a chronic Gen Z on social media. And my screen time was ridiculous. But I was studying what other creators were doing. I was looking at platforms like YouTube and TikTok and X and thinking, how are these solopreneurs, how are these creators like getting viral content? How are they funneling that into lead magnets? How are they building businesses off the back of their personality? And at the time, a lot of people weren't doing it on LinkedIn. And I thought there was a huge gap because the people on LinkedIn were doing amazing things offline. And I thought, what if you just brought that online? If I could do it as a student who hadn't really done much career-wise and I was building a successful brand, imagine if you took somebody who'd been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years, you know, built a mega successful business and then started talking about that publicly.
Yeah.
The opportunities that could open are huge.
When you were growing up
Yeah.
or at university, did you think entrepreneurship, that's what you wanted to do at the back of your mind? Or
I never considered entrepreneurship.
No.
I was never exposed to it, so I
No.
didn't think like it was a viable career route. So for context, whilst I was at uni, I was in like 2 overdrafts. I had 2 part-time jobs. I'm state school educated, second-gen immigrant. So I never had people around me who were running businesses that I could think, oh yeah, you know, I see them, I can do that too. But what happened at uni, I was surrounded by people from quite privileged backgrounds because Durham University is quite a privileged one. And so I was there, like, you know, working multiple part-time jobs, applying for every internship under the sun just to get work experience under my belt. And then I realized, like, I actually can do anything that I want. Like, there's no ceiling to what, you know, I'm at the same university as all these other people. And what happens from here is up to me. I think that kind of started this like delusional level of self-belief, which I thought, I'm gonna do what I can here. And then I just put myself forward for everything. Like any opportunity at university, I'd be like, I'll do it. So I did volunteering, I did part-time jobs, I joined the student union, I joined societies, I applied for every internship you can imagine, and anything to just bulk out my CV. And at that point, I thought, maybe there is something in this, especially when I started posting on LinkedIn. And I had really senior business people like DMing me and saying, how are you creating content? Like, how could we create content? And those people would never have given like me the time of the day if I didn't have a brand.
Yeah.
I could have emailed them, applied for their jobs. I would have got ignored.
So partly right time, right place, but also you've got a passion for that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of marrying up of the two.
Yeah, I really wanted, ultimately, like, my goal in life in general is just freedom. So time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom.
Yeah.
And I realized if I stayed in the role that I was in after university, it would be very slow. And I think, again, this is quite a Gen Z way of thinking, which is there is no, like, a lot of people my age just don't want to work until the age of 65, 70 to enjoy retirement. Like, we want to live a semi-retired lifestyle day to day. And for a lot of people, that's like crazy and like, how could you even get there? But I decided I'm going to start doing it. And it's taken me 4 years, but I do genuinely feel now like I own my day. I do the work that I want to do when I want to do it. I can travel freely. I'm not restricted geographically anywhere. And that was always my goal.
Yeah. My parents both came, they were effectively sort of academics, teachers. So definitely the world I'm in is completely obscure to them. Was that the same for you, or did you?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So my dad works in engineering, but both his parents came to the UK, I think in the 30s, 40s. So he was a first generation immigrant. Neither of his parents spoke English, but he managed to like get into university and then worked his way up from like the bottom to like an engineering director. And my mum was born in Pakistan. She came to the UK, I think, at 21. So she didn't speak English when I was growing up. It's funny because like a few weeks ago, I actually gave her a call and I was quite ill at the time. And she said, like, you really need to take a day off. Call your boss and tell him, just like, take a day off. And I was like, Mum, it's been nearly 4 years. I'm self-employed. Yeah. But like, even the concept of me being self-employed.
It's crazy, having time. I totally can resonate with that because, my parents are in their 70s. Well, my mum talks about time off as well. And are you paying into your pension? I'm like, it's sort of relevant, but you need the business to work first. That's the fundamental thing.
Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. Sorry, I did a bit of research, and there was a piece about Yellow Hippo. So how has it shifted from that?
Yeah.
Basically, Shoaib Ahmed is the brand now that I can see online. But
yeah, so when I started the business, it was going quite well. And by month 3, I was advised to essentially turn it into a limited company. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I needed help. I realized I had a lot more demand for like business demand than I could actually service. So then I hired somebody full time. And at that point, I remember that in that interview, they were like, what's the company called? And I was like, good question. Like, it's not really a company. Technically it is. It's registered as a limited company, but it is just me. And at that point I thought, okay, I need to actually create like a company brand around this so it feels and looks more legit rather than just my face everywhere. So that's why I built the company brand, Yellow Hippo. It's called Yellow Hippo because we essentially at the time did really disruptive personal branding, kind of not seen before stuff.
Gotcha. And hippos aren't yellow.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's pretty basic. And then I hired another full-time team member and then another, and I was essentially building an agency. And then I realized like 2-3 years in, I was just not in love with my business anymore. I felt like shackled to the thing that I'd created. I didn't have time freedom. I didn't have location freedom. Yes, I was building financial freedom, but there was costs to that. And like my health was quite a big cost as well. So I decided, what do I actually want from life? Where am I going? If I was to continue to scale this more and more and more, where would I end up? And I realized when you hit a milestone in business, you just create a bigger milestone and you just like start climbing this ladder that never really ends. So it was our biggest revenue month as a company when I decided to burn it all down. Because if we kept growing, like there would be no ceiling and I would suffer the consequences of that. I realized.
How many employees did you get up to?
So I had 3 full-time and then had 4 or 5 contractors.
Wow. It's quite a size at that point.
Yeah. So I basically said to my team, who I was super close to, still friends with to this day, I said, look, this is where I'm heading. And I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I think I want to go back to being just me. So I gave them as much notice as they needed, introduced them to loads of people in my network. They all secured jobs. And then at that point, I publicly announced I'm going back to just me. And the last 12 months have been the best in business. Some months I've actually made just as much money, with like 15K less overheads, just me, which proved like my initial belief that you can build a one-person business, like a lifestyle business, and live a successful lifestyle around it.
Amazing. So at the moment, you don't use any other people for any of the work that you do to augment in terms of contractors or?
Yeah, so I have like part-time odd here and there contractors to help out if I'm like super busy, mainly if that's like a specialist skill, right? I have an accountant as well because I'm crap with numbers, so he is my savior.
Do you see people who when you're helping clients, you've helped what 200 odd clients? So I guess you must help. What's the proportion who are entrepreneurs, and then what's the proportion who are in careers? Like what's the split of?
Yeah, it's about 90% entrepreneurs.
90%.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 10% careers. And it's interesting though, because the 10% who are careers have actually had some of the most successful results from it.
Yeah.
A lot.
Must be in big companies and.
Exactly. Yeah. So that carries weight as well, being associated with a specific brand or company name. I've done some team training as well. So I'll go into an organization and maybe their head of HR, head of sales, or their marketing team. I essentially deliver like LinkedIn workshops of how they can all leverage LinkedIn and their personal brand within the role, but cohesively, so it forwards the company.
Gotcha.
Because I do have, some founders might be a little bit wary of like, should we invest in our team building their personal brand? Like, could they just build a really successful brand and then leave the company or set up their own thing? So it's quite a delicate balance. But yeah, I'd say 90% to 10% is the ratio.
Yeah. Any differences you see between your approach with a senior exec who wants to get to the board level position of a different company versus an entrepreneur who's, I guess, promoting their ecosystem of products and...
Yeah, I think with founders, you can be way more personal. If you're a business owner, there's more you can say, right? And I think if you're an employee within an organization, you may be more restricted in the stories that you can tell or how strong you can be with your tone of voice, personality, the way you write and come across.
Yeah.
But both of them, at the foundations, it's about building thought leadership in your industry or space. So how do you become a go-to figure of influence, is what I call it.
Yeah.
In your niche. So when people think of that service or that industry or that topic, they think of you.
Yeah.
So my goal at the beginning was always, I want to be the person to go to for anything LinkedIn personal branding related.
Yeah.
So all my brand is built around that. Obviously not just speaking about that, because eventually, to some people that will get boring. Mm-hmm. And I've got to show my personality, because there could be 100 people offering the exact same service as me. I am the differentiator.
Yeah.
So I need to have trust, likability, affinity with people, so they feel like they can work with me and they want to work with me as well.
The first time I come across this concept there was obviously lots of personal branding in corporates, but Daniel Priestley had done the key person of influence.
Yeah.
And you do see a lot on LinkedIn now about personal branding and that being almost more important than the company you're building. Mm-hmm. Do you want to just touch on that? Like what for people that aren't aware already, like why is it important? Because I do know some people, a friend of mine, trying to get him on a podcast actually, because I started 2 businesses with him at university. So he was very formative to my start in entrepreneurship, but he's into marketing. Yeah. But he's really reluctant to put himself out there. Mr. T, you know who you are. So it's how do you explain to people that they're potentially leaving value off the table by not expressing publicly who they are, because it is difficult to do. Yeah. It's not sometimes enjoyable, and it does leave you open to criticism. Like what do you feel about this as a topic?
Yeah, I come across that all the time with clients. Some people, see the results of personal branding and think, I want that. But then when it comes to actually building their personal brand, they feel very exposed. And they're like, I didn't realize I had to talk about myself so much. But that ultimately is the best way to build trust. You could have a company page posting content on LinkedIn, under a corporate brand. And that would be great. You could grow that. But imagine if you had the head of HR, the head of sales, the head of marketing, the CEO, the board team, and people under those brackets all posting on LinkedIn at the same time on their personal profiles, cohesive messaging around a particular vision for the company, but all coming at it from different angles. Now, if I was in that industry and I logged onto LinkedIn and all I saw was all these people from this company, that is ultimate influence, right? Whereas if I saw one company page, I don't know who's behind that. So immediately there's going to be a barrier. As soon as I see a company page, I think I'm being sold to. Whereas when it's a person, through storytelling, you feel some level of relatability towards them, or you think, oh, that's interesting, their perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's the power of personal branding versus kind of corporate pages. Yeah. And also through personal profile, there's a whole host of opportunities that you get. Like when I started my business, it was to help other people build their brand. But off the back of it, I've been invited to over 50 podcasts. I've spoken on multiple stages and been paid to do it, purely because I'm seen as a figure of influence now. And then also there's, a whole heap of other opportunities that come with it, whether that's brand deals and PR, recognition in media outlets that, people pay thousands for to feature in a particular magazine. When you have a strong personal brand,
PR back in the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you have a strong personal brand, you just get people DMing you saying, we'd love to feature you and we're going to pay you. And it can just happen like overnight.
Yeah. And I don't know what the stats are, but it's the individual football players versus the number of followers they have versus the football clubs they work for. Like,
right.
I don't know off the tip of my tongue, but it's disproportionate, isn't it? Like, Musk has more followers than his companies, Ronaldo, and I don't know if you know those stats off the top of your head, but it's staggering when you think that, okay, that they're employed by football clubs to play football, but their reach is tens of hundreds of times more than the people that they work for.
And the reason for that, I think, is because people have a point of view and a perspective, whereas when you're a company posting, you might have 100 people in that organization, but the actual company brand and what the company says online is very diluted and limited because it has to follow strict guidelines and it has to appease 100 people.
Yeah.
Whereas when you've got a personal brand, you can really show personality and point of view and perspective and opinion and insight in a different way. Yeah. And you can talk through, founder-led storytelling or experience-led marketing, which immediately is more trustworthy because somebody could say, this is a problem I had, this is what I did, and here's what happened. That's way more interesting than a corporate company saying, here's a 70-page white paper we wrote about this topic. Whereas John, the sales guy on LinkedIn, is posting a 60-second video from his bedroom, and more people are watching that because it's entertaining, or there's a bit of humor in there, or he shared a business message in kind of quite a disruptive way. Yeah. And because a lot of people aren't doing it, you stand out more. And I think in the world of AI, this is going to be even more powerful. A lot of people now I see on LinkedIn are thinking, we need to create a personal brand. Let's go onto ChatGPT, Claude, any other AI software, and let's start using the content that creates for us and posting it on LinkedIn. But I actually think that's the biggest mistake you can make because everybody's doing that. All the content reads the same. So essentially, you're losing the personal and personal branding. As more and more people start posting on LinkedIn, your personality and point of view is going to be your differentiator. So really, at its core, it's human storytelling. And I obviously live in LinkedIn accounts of multiple people all at once. So I have first-party data that shows the more personable your content is, the better it performs. Like not even double or triple. I'm talking like 10, 11 times more impressions, going from 30,000 impressions to 3 million. That's the difference we're talking when you get really personal.
So the 90% of entrepreneurs that you work with, like what portion of them are solopreneurs who are doing coaching or selling e-commerce products versus entrepreneurs who set up a business which delivers a service and product? Like what's the...
Yeah, I'd probably say it's about 50-50. So I have a lot of people at the early stage who are using the personal brand on LinkedIn as the primary marketing vehicle to help them then build and scale an established company.
Yeah.
And then I have quite a few content creators who might have been on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and thinking, actually, I'm posting all this content online, but where am I going to get business opportunities? And that's on LinkedIn, like media partnerships and publishing deals and PR. And then I have established founders. I think the most I've worked with is somebody who had a team of about 200 people. Wow. And he wanted to use personal branding and push budget from paid ads, which were declining in terms of return on investment, and put it into personal branding, which actually sold out their webinar for the first time in, I think, 11 years. It fully sold out. And that was just the first campaign we did through a personal brand, which shows its impact. And then,
it's a shift from thinking about kind of like paid ads where there was a business we were involved in, which was an e-commerce subscription business where I was CFO at the time, and it was all about how much it cost you to acquire that customer.
Yes.
Whereas this approach is you do have to make an investment in marketing people or your own time to create content, but the payback is potentially huge, isn't it?
Yes.
But less tangible because you're not paying, it's a pound to acquire this customer. You're creating a personal brand and content in order to acquire customers.
You're essentially creating an ecosystem, but the benefit is it lives on forever. A paid ad, it only lives as much as you pump budget into it. Whereas your content, somebody, like actually the other day, somebody messaged me and referenced a post that I posted about 1.5 years ago, and it just stuck in their mind. And they remembered that when they needed personal branding and reached out to me. So it has a much longer lifespan, just personal branding. And also you can, it is now way more measurable as well. So for example, the reach of a post, obviously that's pretty measurable, but that's a lot of CFOs or people who are more money focused are thinking, what does reach mean? Cool, a few people have seen it. But now what you can do is use content as your brand awareness part of your funnel, and then, you know, link that to maybe a free webinar where everyone can join. Now, once you get people onto that webinar, you're collecting data, you're building a mailing list. You can then market to those more interested people, whatever product, launch, service you're offering. So you're now building a mailing list, you're collecting first-party data on your ICP, you're able to market your products over time to that audience who are way more invested in what you have to say, and you can then, based upon the types of interest, segment that audience to sell different things too. But you can also measure things like website traffic, or if you wanted to be more granular, like have a Calendly form on your LinkedIn profile and see how many bookings you get through that, how many of those convert into sales, and compare that with other metrics like paid ads, sales team, cold calling, cold email.
It's definitely measurable.
Yeah.
Just going back to the AI piece, so your sort of tips or watch outs for people is you're presumably not saying don't use ChatGPT or Claude to augment your writing. It's just about making it personal to you. Is like, what would be the differentiator if you were talking about personal brand versus people trying to post every day? Like, what would be your tips for how to use AI?
Yeah, so I think AI, definitely use it because it's going to help you save a lot of time, and not everybody's a copywriter by trade, right? So they won't understand like the marketing principles and the psychology going into it. So it's a great place to start. However, you have to feed and train that GPT or that AI to understand you, your tone of voice, your personality, and your story. I mean, one really simple way is you can click voice record and speak to ChatGPT and tell it a story of something that happened to you or something you believed in. Get that right back, a rough skeleton of a post, and then go in and think, firstly, does this actually sound like me? Because the answer, I guarantee, will probably be no. Then think, how can I make this more conversational in terms of my dialect, the way I speak, the words that I use? Instead of saying, you know, that's great, I might say, that's bloody awesome. Something as subtle as that language difference makes it sound more human. Other things, how can I do visual storytelling, attaching an imagery that helps convey the emotion or sentiment of that story or helps bring that story to life? Other things you can do is learn viral writing principles. So even if that means getting a coach, speaking to somebody who's a copywriter by trade, and just learning what a good piece of content looks like on the social media channel that you're posting on. Every social channel is different. There are ways that you can play the system in ways, you know, play the algorithm, certain things that will help you get higher reach than others. If you understand which levers to pull, you can include them in your content. But you've got to start with something personal, a story, something grounded in reality. Because if you just ask ChatGPT to write you a post about, I don't know, how to conduct a sales call, right? Anyone can get that information anywhere. What's stopping somebody just plugging that question into ChatGPT themselves, going on an article or blog, right? They could just do that. Why would they read and like and engage with your LinkedIn content? The difference is you. Like, so how can you tell them that bit of advice, but through a story, through something that's going to actually get their attention, through data, proof, experience, etc.
One of the things I read was about using LinkedIn, because you're right. People are obviously, I think marketing is probably more mature on, say, Instagram or Facebook or Google Ads, obviously Facebook ads, versus LinkedIn. I mean, how are you seeing the most successful people on LinkedIn convert an audience and a following and regular posting into revenue?
Yeah. So you have to have a clear offer. And the mistake I see people make is they write sales posts on LinkedIn as standalone posts where they're clearly trying to get somebody to buy something. But what they haven't built is an audience that trusts them, that likes them, that understands them, their product, their philosophy, their point of view, their perspective. So they're not going to have any reason to buy. We know that people need multiple touch points. We're talking 8 to 16 touch points before they even consider buying anything from that person. So how are you building multiple touch points within your marketing to get people to buy? It might start with a piece, a post. It might start with 10 posts, 15, 20 posts, but then think, how can I move people from a LinkedIn post into taking some form of action? That action might be getting them onto a free webinar, getting them to download a digital product or like a PDF or a checklist resource, take a quiz, whatever that thing is. Once you're doing that, you're building ownable audience, you're collecting emails, you're seeing who's interested, and that's essentially a buyer signal. If somebody is downloading something from your website or has inquired for more information or is checking out your profile on LinkedIn quite often, or even just following you, there's a reason they've done that. That's like somebody coming to the storefront of your physical shop and knocking on the door. Now, if you don't let them in and open that door, that's money you're bleeding. And you can say, I have thousands of people at my door, but they might never buy if you don't let them in. So you've then got to respond to the buyer intent signals. It might be DMing everybody who's viewed your profile in the last week with a question like, hey, so you check buy. Was it a post that caught your eye, or are you interested in, and then insert whatever you do. Start that conversation organically, because there's a reason why people are there. Other things that I do is, I might create a digital product, a lead magnet, where I'm giving away free value that I know is going to help that person. And I'm not like super gatekeeping it. Now, once they download that, they see what I have to offer. They see the value that they're getting for free. Often off the back of that, I can then market to those people more acutely and target them based on whatever they bought into. With offers, different opportunities that are relevant to that audience now. So it's about treating your entire LinkedIn ecosystem as a sales funnel. Your LinkedIn posts are the top of the funnel, the brand awareness. In the middle, how do you nurture that audience? How do you keep them interested, build trust? And then at the bottom is where you have the more, direct sales call. But I see so many people just DM people randomly without never speaking to them, trying to promote like a software or some tech product. Never works. What you should be doing is looking at warm leads, who's leaving a trail of interest behind them, and capitalizing on that. That's how you turn it into revenue. But you've got to have that offer there as well. You've got to have something tangible and not 20 different things. Yeah. You've got to have one thing, and everything funnels down into that one action you want people to take.
Yeah. I suppose I can see a lot of solopreneurs who are focused on whether it's health and wellness, personal branding, and you see some who are the most notable person who he's got multiple businesses that he then promotes from his banner. But interesting.
With someone like Stephen, just to add, he didn't have all those businesses until after he'd built his personal brand. So at the time he had maybe one or two. Yeah. And so it was easy to build a more like niche brand based on that. But once his brand had been built, he was then able to open loads of different businesses. I mean, the same with somebody like Daniel Priestley. He now offers help to people to create content. He has a LinkedIn course, for example. Now, he's only able to do that because he's built a personal brand. Yeah. Right? So, it opens so many doors. I actually had a founder who I worked with who had a app that helped people train their dogs, right? It was an app that he'd built, and I don't know exactly what happened to that business, but he exited. But because he'd built a really successful personal brand, 2 days later he was able to set up a new business and it'd be successful, and he raised a lot of money purely because he already had a brand built. So when you have the brand, even if your current business doesn't work out or you choose to try something new, you've now got audience. You've got a great network. He had loads of investors already in his network who knew him, who liked him, who saw him every day on their newsfeed. Like, there's no better marketing than reading someone's thoughts every single day on your commute to work. Yeah.
Just coming back to your story, like how did year 1, 2, 3? I mean, we spoke about the transition from you doing it to employing other people to doing it to going back to focusing on yourself and higher margin work and freedom. How have you found like your mentality has changed, throughout that period for, thinking in mind of other entrepreneurs who start out? And I suppose it's the hustle culture and how do you balance? And I think the answer is you can't, but you've got to make at least intentional, conscious decisions to do that. So what conscious, intentional decisions did you make, if any, during that period?
Yeah, I mean, the first year, like, it was just pure hustle because I had to build something from the ground up and nobody else was going to come and do it for me. So that was like working. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, it was like 16, 18-hour days. It was 4 or 5 hours of sleep per night. It was not going to the gym, putting on about 3 stone in weight. It was living off takeaways, Domino's, 4 or 5 Red Bull cans a day, which is crazily unhealthy now looking back. But that was essentially, and I think the adrenaline of seeing something that I was building grow kept me going. But there's only so long that you can do that for, especially when you start hiring people and bringing people in your team. Like, you cannot, as a founder, promote that kind of lifestyle for other people. You have a different type of responsibility. In year 2 and 3, I then started realizing if I want to scale this, I have to work less scrappily and think in terms of like systems and ops and processes and documentation. And the ultimate goal at the beginning is making enough money to survive, to replace your wage, and then thinking, okay, I need to make more money to reinvest in the business to then help it scale. Once you hit that point where you're able to make some like decent income for yourself, it's then a case of, okay, where in the business can I invest this money to get the most return? Whether that's marketing, whether that's hiring somebody, whether that's launching a new offer, whatever it is. At that point, I then started thinking way more strategically. But I feel like you have to go through the chaos of the build to actually figure out what you want to do and what's working and what isn't, and where your strengths lie versus where your weaknesses lie.
Yeah.
Now
I don't know if you see some entrepreneurs waiting for like the perfect set of circumstances, whereas you're almost better off just starting and seeing what hits and then refine as you go.
100%. I'd always say you've got to knock down the first domino. Once you've knocked that first domino down, it's a momentum effect. I think people spend way too long waiting for motivation to come, or the perfect day, the perfect set of scenarios to just magically appear. If you take one small action, you get a little bit of dopamine from seeing the result of that thing, and that is what spurs you on to the next thing. My entire business has been built like that. I never had like a strict business plan at the beginning. What I thought the business would look like in year 4 is not what it looks like today. But it's just because I've adapted and pivoted at each stage based on seeing what's been working and what I kind of like need to fix or adapt or change. But now I'm obviously not working crazily like I was back then, because I've realized I've kind of like, I guess, sounds a bit corny, but like figured out your purpose a little bit more. And that only comes through time, right? And through exposure to different things. You start to realize, oh, like, I really enjoy this, or this is my target audience, or actually I don't want to build a massive agency and hire loads of people. And I'd prefer like a lifestyle business that allows me to work a few hours a day and still make decent income, because that's ultimately the sign of freedom, right? Ownership of your diary.
Yeah. So you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what does the day look like now?
So the day looks like, so I start work at 6 a.m. I'm in a coffee shop at 6 a.m. because that's when I work best in the morning, which is great because I remember when I was in a 9 to 5, obviously you don't have the flexibility. You just have to go with the set hours, and not everybody works in the same way. For me, when I discovered that I was autistic and ADHD, that gave me so much more awareness of like my body, my routine, how my brain operates. And I was able to build my own routine. So I start at 6 a.m. I work 2-3 hours, go for a half an hour walk, get some breakfast, go back to another coffee shop a couple of hours, take any meetings I need to, and then have some lunch. And then again, a little 15-20 minute break where I just move my body. So I have to go out, like outside, even if it's raining, snowing, I will be outside getting some daylight away from a desk. And then I usually finish work around 2:30 p.m. and I go straight to the gym. And most evenings now I plan stuff with my friends or people I've met from LinkedIn, and we go hang out and do something random. Last week I went rollerblading with a stranger, someone I met on LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, let's go rollerblading, and they were like, sure. So yeah, I think for me it's going back now to like the core principles of what I think would be like a great life to live, which is health, community, and like adventure. And those are the 3 things that between 2:30 p.m. and before I go to bed, I try to at least do one thing for one of those buckets. I'm either building community, seeing people, social relationships, investing in my health or well-being in some way, or doing something new and different and like chasing the sense of adventure.
And you're based in UK?
Yeah, I'm based in Manchester, that's where I live, but I do travel a lot as well, and that's obviously the other blessing of being self-employed. So like next week I fly to Bali for a month and I take my laptop wherever I go, and that's ultimately why I started the business, to be able to travel freely and explore different places.
You still may be working during the week from 6 to 2:30, but you're by the beach, not in the rain or...
Yeah, and there will be times where I'll work way more, where I'll work from 6:30 till 6 p.m, right? And I work in seasons is what I call it, which is if I know I'm launching something in 3 months' time or I'm building a new product, like if the work requires me to work, I will do it. But I do it because I actually enjoy it now. And I've built like a business that I love, and the clients I work with, I genuinely adore. And I'd probably say no to 75% of people who reach out to me, because I know if I say yes, I won't enjoy the work, and then I'll start to resent the client, and then I won't do my best work, and that will overall tarnish my brand, the quality of what I'm known for. So because I've built everything in the business, I actually enjoy doing it. I don't feel like I'm working if I am doing longer hours. But then also I've had to untrain my brain to not feel guilty for stopping work at 2 p.m. and thinking, oh, I need to stay on my laptop till 5 p.m. just because somebody one day invented a 9 to 5. Like there's no real logic behind that. It was just a means of production, right?
I think that's a huge advantage of being an entrepreneur from get-go, is there are some social things that are so ingrained. It's me and my partner and wife, we still talk about a working day, and it's an arbitrary thing that companies made up, isn't it? Even though you might be better off, as you say, working early in the morning or late evening. Yeah. That's quite interesting. And what are the cons? Like, what do you see are there any downsides to people posting on LinkedIn? Can it become distracting for some people? Can some of the comments be hurtful or kind of distract or rent space in your head for periods? Like, is there any of that you see on behalf of your clients?
Yes, yeah. I see it for myself and some of my clients. Once you're like in multiple accounts, obviously my experience is very different depending on which client I'm working with. I will say that I see a horrific amount of like misogyny and completely just harassment, and that's leaning towards female clients. Unsolicited messages in the DMs, loads of random crappy comments on their posts which are purely about appearance, which does happen. Like any social media platform, and I know a lot of people wouldn't associate it with LinkedIn, but it does happen, unfortunately. And if people disagree with your posts, like some people will tell you that. And so you will get people calling out your character maybe, or your point of view, or questioning something, like if it's too good to be true, for example. Like I've had that with a post that I wrote, which ended up on Reddit in like a whole thread, and I think there's like thousands of people commenting on this. And somebody sent it to me, and I was reading the comments, and I was like, why am I reading these comments? Like a bunch of strangers who don't know me. But essentially the idea was like, oh, like it's easy for him to say he's like clearly a trust fund kid, like who's like, built his own business on bank of mummy and daddy, which actually felt really great to read because that's like the opposite of my story. So I was like, I'm doing something right here. Yeah. But you're going to get that. And I think the quicker you realize to build something meaningful, you can't sit on the fence. You have to have a strong point of view, because if you sit on the fence and just say things that are quite neutral, you're not really going to move or repel people away from you, but you're also not going to create true fans that are obsessed with your product, or obsessed with your brand, or obsessed with your company or service. So there is a give or take. You have to go all in on the thing that you really fundamentally believe in. And if you believe in what you're selling or you're sharing or your point of view or your story, then that's more than enough, I think, for especially the clients I work with. They just see like the odd negative comment and think that's fine, because me posting has led to all of these opportunities.
Right.
Who cares what John from Stoke thinks?
Yeah. So it's a necessary evil, which in the scheme of things is relatively insignificant.
Yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's like completely insignificant, but it just, we allow it to take up headspace. There might be 99 amazing comments, but you just see that one that's a little bit, disagrees with you, but that's fine.
Yeah. I suppose being able to partition that from in some way must be helpful to almost put things into boxes. But for most people in business, as you say, like particularly B2B, like LinkedIn is the platform to be in, and it's where everyone exists. And still the stats, you see a lot of people posting on LinkedIn now, but still the stats are really, like I think less than 1% or something. I don't know what the stats are, but less than 1% post weekly and things like this. So are there any sort of like top 5 tips for perhaps people who are working their way up in their career, like that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, so tip number 1 would be to convert your LinkedIn profile into like a showcase page. Most people treat it as a little bit like a CV where they put their job title and say what they do in that company. It should be saying exactly what makes you different in your space, showcasing personality and a point of view and perspective, but also branding yourself as a company, treating yourself as like a brand, not just a person who is looking for a job or wants to be seen as credible. So instead of saying what you do, say who you help, how you help them, what experience that you've got that you can bring to the table, using any data. I especially say social proof is really important. So testimonials, references, before versus after, case studies, transformation stories, logos of brands you've worked with, media you might have featured in, podcasts that you've been on. All of this just raises your credibility. If somebody lands on your LinkedIn page and in your banner photo you have 5 different logos of recognizable companies that you've worked with or been on a project associated with, immediately you're now borrowing the trust of those 5 companies, and you're going to be seen with more authority as somebody who's might have done all the same stuff as you but just isn't showing it. So that's tip number 1. Don't be so humble. Like showcase what you've done and what you've achieved. Second one is to start posting daily. Even if you start maybe three posts a week, talk about the things that you've done. I mean, I do now and again, but I'd say at least 3 times a week is a good starting point. You've got to build traction. You've got to be memorable in newsfeeds. So if you post once every 2-3 weeks, you're not really building a brand. That's just you like dropping something in here and there, but it's quite forgettable. You've got to have consistency and create stickiness is what I call it. So when people think of you, they think of those 3 things that you speak about consistently, which is tip number 3, having content pillars. So which core things are you going to speak upon repetitively so you build authority in that space? For me, that's LinkedIn, personal branding, and solopreneurship. I speak about those things almost every week, but from different angles, telling different stories. And that's how you essentially become that figure of influence. And that's how you also get invited onto podcasts to talk about that topic, or you get invited to speak on stage and do a keynote on that thing, because you're branding yourself as an expert in that field. As you start with 3 minimum, ideally get to a point where you post every day, 1 post a day. I'm
content pillars.
Yes, content pillars would be 3. I'd say 3 to 5, but you don't want to do too many because then you'll dilute your messaging and people will be like, what does this person actually do? Like, what do they stand for? So 3 to 5 is the range. Another thing that I recommend is learn the anatomy of a good LinkedIn post. What does a good LinkedIn post look like? What I mean by that is the first 2 lines of your post are incredibly important, the hook, right? If people are intrigued by those first 2 lines, they'll click the read more button and read the rest of your post. Now, I see people who might spend 40 minutes writing a LinkedIn post and putting loads of depth into it, but their first 2 lines are so weak that nobody's clicking the read more button, so nobody's actually reading anything that they've written. So it's all a waste. So you've got to kind of think in terms of marketing psychology, and you've got to engineer those first 2 lines to steal attention. Once you've done that, then you've got the job of retaining that attention line by line as you go through a post. You know, attention spans are short and they're just getting shorter. So you've got to think, how can I hook that attention? Another thing is visual storytelling. Now, if you post on LinkedIn and you post a picture, say somebody's scrolling their phone on their mobile, that photo is now taking up the majority of their screen. They have to scroll longer to go past your post. It might be 2 or 3 scrolls before they go past you. So you're more likely to disrupt a scroll. If you don't post a picture or any visual, your post might be 2 lines long and it might be sandwiched in between 2 other posts which have images. So as people are scrolling, your post is very easy to get lost. So just think in terms of like actual, like the literal.
So picture's good.
Yeah, pictures are good, but they've got to have a visual story. They've got to complement the story you're telling in the text.
Yeah.
So think, how can I
Something
add
relevant.
to it? Yeah, something relevant, and it's got to add to it in terms of a different, like an emotional response it creates, or it has to symbolize something that you've said in the post, or it has to add authority to what you're saying. So that might be like a picture of you on stage speaking. It might be a picture of you in a podcast studio. That immediately adds weight and gravitas to what you're saying. And then the final one is build in public. Whatever you're doing, don't talk about it after you've done the thing, because by that point, you've done it, nobody cares. You've got to take people on the journey with you so they feel emotionally invested in what you're doing and building. That's how I've built my entire business. Some people still reach out to this day and say, I remember when you had like 3,000 followers and you were like a student, and it's amazing to see where you are today. I'm hosting an event. We're looking for a headline speaker. Do you want to come on stage? That's the power of building in public. People feel like they know you and they're almost like rooting for you. So when you do launch something, they want to see you win. When I host a webinar, for example, they've seen me build personal brand in real time. So it's not just me saying, branding myself as an expert without the actual evidence or proof. They've seen it. I've demonstrated that I can do the thing I say I do. So this applies to anybody in any industry. Talk about what you're doing as you're doing it, because you never know who's reading a post, and there could be an opportunity out there.
And failures and things that work.
Yes, yeah.
Because that's the people. It's the fear of failure is big.
Yes.
So, but that's okay, I guess, is it?
Yeah,
Isn't it?
I genuinely have had more direct leads in my DMs from posts where I've talked about things going wrong, because people immediately trust you more. If I said everything was perfect all the time and I'm the best personal brand person in the world and all my clients get amazing results, people aren't going to believe that.
No.
So take people every good story has, ups and downs, peaks and troughs, and the same with building in public. So if something's gone wrong, talk about it, but then always end with something that the reader can take away. So whether it's a transformation story of how you turned it around, or how you did fail back then, but now you've done something and this is what the result of that has been, and it's become a positive. Or make it like a teachable moment where you're just being honest and saying, look, this is what happened. Please don't make the same mistake. Immediately it humanizes you, and that vulnerability creates closer trust and association.
So photos, yes. Videos versus posts. What's the
Videos good.
I see like Instagram, obviously, and Facebook, and if you go back way back, TV advertising videos would be the predominant form. LinkedIn, you see more posts or carousels or writing, but I see people doing more videos now. Like, what's your?
So LinkedIn did introduce a video feed like TikTok like a year ago. And they inflated all the impressions on the videos because it was a new feature. So LinkedIn were trying to get people to post more video. So the way they were doing that is just pushing video onto everyone's newsfeed. So you could do a video and it got maybe 50, 60,000 impressions instantly. But then they realized, actually, we can't keep doing that because it shuns all the other content. They actually removed the video feed in the end, and now the impressions are back to like way lower. So I would say if you want to go like viral, video might not be the best way to do it. The benefit of video is you are building way more trust with your audience because they're seeing you speak the thing that you're talking about. And there's no better way to build trust than like it feeling like you're speaking to that person. So people can actually hear you, see you, and it feels more immersive. So I would use video strategically to nurture people, not to build brand awareness. Because let's be honest, most people on LinkedIn aren't going to watch a 2-minute video of a stranger. They're going to scroll past it. But if you've built brand and you've created a great story around you and you do text and image-based posts quite a lot and you've built a decent audience, then when you go to video, it's basically like the next level. It's like the next level of that game where you're taking the people who are intrigued by you and you're giving them more. That's how I'd use video.
Got it.
Deepen trust.
Amazing. Is there anything you feel we haven't covered that you would like to cover around sort of LinkedIn or your story?
What I would say is a lot of the things I've said, sound great on paper, the opportunities that come from LinkedIn, but it takes time. Personal branding is not a quick one-off, let's quickly invest in this and hope we get, a 6-figure client the next week. Yeah. But the thing with personal branding is it compounds over time, and you've got to be patient and play the long game and be consistent with it. It's like, having a podcast. Like if you do 1 or 2 episodes, it's not going to be the top charting podcast, but you do 100, 200 episodes over time, you build consistency, you build an audience, you build trust, things happen from it. It's the same with LinkedIn. But you've got to keep at it. Paid ad, you get dopamine as soon as someone clicks, they buy something, and you get that Stripe notification saying they've bought it, right? LinkedIn doesn't work that way. But over time, I guarantee you will see long-term compounding and like unlimited opportunities come from it.
Well, one thought I did have was I can definitely see the B2C element in LinkedIn, where I know it's a B2B platform, but there are lots of professionals or buyers and businesses for courses or training who do purchase because of LinkedIn following. Have you got examples where there's B2B sort of contracts that are being bought on the basis of people developing a following?
Yeah, my biggest client to date, who I've worked with 3 years, works in direct B2B. So when he signed clients like HubSpot, Xero, ActiveCampaign, Webflow, like huge brands. And the meetings that he got with people in those organizations was not through his website or mailing list or cold email. It was in the LinkedIn DMs. Yeah. It was him talking about things that were of interest to his target audience. And, senior head of growth at HubSpot connects with him one day. He then responds to that signal with a warm DM, a very chatty, conversational DM. And that leads to a call, and then that leads to a retainer. And that client works in tech. He has a SaaS product, and 90% of their revenue comes directly from LinkedIn. But that's not an instant purchase. That's let's do a demo, let's book you onto a call, right. And then it starts a process.
It's a customer journey.
Yeah, so the LinkedIn's the top of funnel. It's that brand awareness piece that gets people interested. Whereas if and he did used to do this, just go on Sales Navigator and cold DM all these people, never got any replies because they didn't know who he was and there was no level of trust there. But he was getting inbound leads, which then convert into something. But you've got to kind of be patient to get to that point.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to hear from you?
Unsurprisingly, on LinkedIn. Shoaib Ahmed on LinkedIn, and I do everything there. I do have a website, www.shoaibahmed.co.uk, but all the traffic on the website comes through LinkedIn. So that's where you'll find me.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.